All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Belvedere City Council Committee of the Whole meeting of October 28th, 2024. If the clerk will help me with a roll call, please.
Albertini,
Here.
Brereton,
Here.
Flurry,
Here.
Frank,
Here.
Freeman, Gramkowski,
Here.
McGee,
Here.
Mulhall absent, Peterson,
Here.
Stevens.
Here.
9 present.
Okay, thank you. And under public comment this evening, we have Pam Fettis. Pam, good evening. If you'd come up with Growth Dimensions, if you'd mind coming up and get some microphones on. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Good evening. I just wanted to provide an update, since I wasn't here last week, for the council. We have over 152 projects that's currently active. Some of those projects include Microsoft, which we're continuing to work with, on not only the current project, but future development opportunities. We're also met with a group focusing on food production in the Chicagoland area. We are working with a manufacturing brake pads, or a manufacturer of brake pads, looking at space in the area, as well as another manufacturing business that's looking to expand their market here. There's also been a food ingredient company that we're working with, an agribusiness, and many others. We've had a lot of activities in other areas, including we have applied with Region 1 Planning Council in the state of Illinois for a Department of Energy grant it's called IRA Domestic Manufacturing Conversion Grant for small businesses and medium manufacturers. Really what we'd be doing in our role would be connecting opportunities with some of the smaller businesses and manufacturers for the automotive industry. Very much what we do with our Automotive Innovation Network. We are also collaborating with Cience. It just passed for the Manufacturing Day. There was also 46 applicants that applied for our position that we have with business manager. We hope to be making an announcement soon with the chosen candidate. Some more recent activity was the food workshop that was sponsored by the Boone County Health Department. We provide with a presentation to businesses every year. This year, I think there was probably close to 100 representatives there. And then we're also teach a workforce development class for International Economic Development Council, and we are also being a panelist to a workshop that's coming up on key metrics for workforce and economic development programs. So,
All right, thank you, Pam. Anybody have any questions for Ms. Fettis? All right, I know you're busy, and thank you very much for coming this evening, coming back.
thank you. Have a good night.
You too. All right, do we have anybody else registered for public comment? Okay, we will move to public forum. Chief Woody, good evening. So we have officer recognition this evening. Officer Gerardo Venegas and Officer Matthew Gibson, both. Good evening, gentlemen. Chief?
Thank you, Mayor. So for those of you that may not, Dan's in charge of our Facebook, so. Those of you that may not know, every so often our officers, we like to recognize them when they've accomplished certain milestones within the department, and successfully completing probation is one of them, and that's what we have here tonight. Some of you are new to the council. For those of you in the audience that may not be familiar with it, or those watching at home, basically for any of our entry-level applicants, which means that they weren't law enforcement prior to coming onto the department, their probationary period is 18 months. And with Gerardo, there you are. That's what we have. And then for any of our lateral applicants who have prior law enforcement experience that come to our department, their probationary period is 12 months. Reason being, if they weren't law enforcement previously, they have to go to the basic academy, which is roughly 4 months. So we need to compensate so that way we have enough evaluation time once they come back. But both of these officers have successfully completed their probationary period. I'll start with Officer Gerardo Venegas. His story is kind of interesting because in this day and age where, and you've heard it time and time again, come from that seat over there where I tell you how difficult it is for us to find officers that, want to become the police. Gerardo, when he applied for us, literally lived in California. So throughout the application process, he would have to travel back and forth from California to Belvedere to go through the testing process. Would you rather go to Florida? No? Okay. We were all just amazed at his dedication and commitment to the process. I mean, and I know Smaha had met him at the airport a few times and, given him rides to try and at least make that bit of the process a little bit easier for him. But he stuck through it, and as you see here today, he's successfully completed his probationary period. So part of this ceremony is issuing him his permanent badge, because up to now he just gets one that's randomly chosen out of a drawer. And as you'll see, this is brand new and it's super shiny. It's never been used before tonight. So I would like Gerardo to come up so I can officially present you with your badge, number 426. Congratulate you, and that's an awesome job. So if I could, just have you say a few words.
Of course. So I want to thank everybody in this room. I want to thank the mayor. I want to thank the chief, the deputy chiefs, and the whole department for allowing me this opportunity to represent my family. It's been a journey, but I don't regret it at all. I'm loving it. And I look forward to serving this community for many, many years. Thank you.
One important piece of information I forgot to mention about Gerardo is he has since become our new school resource officer. He's excelling at the school. We've heard nothing but good things. So he's been an excellent representative of our department in our city with the school district. So thank you for that, Gerardo. Moving on, I'd like to introduce Matthew Gibson. Matthew comes to us from NIU Police Department, so obviously he was prior law enforcement. He happened to be recruited by one of our officers, heard a little bit about our department. Matthew does live in our community, and he wanted to come and be a stakeholder for our community and represent our community on the police department. He wanted to give back and serve those that he lives next door to. So for that, I would like Matthew to come up and receive his badge, number 430. Congratulations. Just so you know, in preparation for this, I typically pull the officers aside and just kind of prep them, let them know that they're going to need to say a few words. With Matthew, I had to prep him that he can only say a few words. One of the best communicators I have ever met. He is fantastic. During our interview, application interview, he interviewed us. I kid you not. He pulled out a list of questions, and it was fantastic. And we love having him. We love having him.
Appreciate it, Chief. Want to thank our entire department, chief, deputy chiefs, all of our officers, sergeants, and so forth. I want to thank everybody in the community. I want to thank the mayor as well, everybody that's a part of City Hall, everybody that's here today. I want to thank my wife, my 2 kids, and my mother-in-law, my family who's back in Michigan. I'm thankful, like I said, for making my transition here. It's been nothing but a good experience. Some learning curves along the way, adjusting from campus policing to municipal. But it's a change that I would make 1,000 times over. The department has been great. Every day I go home, I can go home with a smile on my face, come back in, and do it all over again. So that's a joy to have. And like I said, I'm glad I have more time with my family. So thank you all, and I look forward to serving the community for more years.
Thank you very much.
All right, reports of officers, boards, and special committees. Item 1, public safety unfinished business, we have none. Item 2, public safety new business. Item A, police department update, Chief Woody.
Thank you again, Mayor. So since the last time I provided an update, just give you an idea of how many applications and examinations we've delivered. Through September, we've provided 33 entry-level written examinations and have done 10 backgrounds. Now, that's not a complete list because I know we've done several in October, but through September, that's what we're looking at. Probationary officer Laura Parra, he's still in step 5 of the FTO program. He's currently on solo patrol. He's scheduled to complete his probation in February of 2025. Officer Stansford is in the FTO program. The police department currently has 6 positions to fill. We have an officer on military deployment until February 2025, 2 other officers on long-term leave, and we currently are testing 1 lateral applicant and have 7 on the entry-level list. We have a Fire and Police Commission meeting tomorrow night where we'll present those backgrounds on the entry-level applicants and review the polygraph and conduct an interview on the lateral applicant. That completes my update, and I'll answer any questions that you may have.
All right, any questions for Chief Woody? Okay, thank you, Chief. Item B, Fire Department update, Chief Shadle, good evening.
Good evening, Mayor. Thank you. In the past 30 days, the fire department responded to 282 calls for service, about 9.4 per shift. Of those calls, 5 of them were building fires, 1 in our community, and we responded to 4 neighboring communities. The one in our community was this Saturday. On Saturday, we had a 3-unit condominium where the center unit garage had lit on fire, fully involved immediately. The cause is preliminary. One thing that was stored in the garage was batteries, lithium-ion batteries for e-bikes and some lawn equipment. So I'm not saying 100% that's the cause because they're trying to figure that out, but that's what it's pointing to right now. All the crews did a excellent job. I know I'm supposed to say that, but they really did. They got there and they delivered water to that center unit. A lot of times those attached units, their modern construction is mostly plastic with the vinyl siding, and then the OSB board is held together by glue. So you got plastic and then glue plywood, and so they go up like matchsticks. And also during that fire, there was a report of somebody bedridden in the same building in the unit right next to it. So there was an off-duty District 2 firefighter and a neighbor who actually had the individual out just about the time we arrived on scene. We practiced so that we're flowing water within 1 minute of parking break, so within 1 minute, and then with the fire being right out in front in the garage there mainly, and then lapping up into the window, they were able to get that knocked almost immediately. And then took a few hours to fully extinguish and then investigate. Happy to say nobody was hurt in that. And the residents, especially the attached units, had expressed their thanks, of course, but when Lieutenant Drawl had arrived on scene, and he initially and most of the time commanded that fire, she said, well, there goes our place, because it was so involved, and now the heat damage and fire is just that center unit. So I definitely wanted to thank Lieutenant Drawl and his crews. They were led by Firefighter Herman and Firefighter Beck for just doing an excellent job. Also District 2, District 3, EMA, Cherry Valley, and Marengo, and the Belvedere Police Department all assisted with that scene. So I wanted to thank all of them for sure. EMS calls, we had 187. Of those, we had a handful of vehicle accidents with injuries and without injuries, carbon monoxide incidents, 4 power lines down, and numerous other calls. As far as ambulance transports, we transported 135 persons to the hospital this past month. So those were the runs I wanted to go over. I wanted to touch base EMS billing wise. We are doing very well in the last 12 months. Now this doesn't include, there's a 4% fee. That's what our billing company gets paid for providing their services. But in the past 12 months, we have collected revenue collected minus that fee, 1.3 million. And fiscal year to date, so we're 6 months through, we've got $884,571. So we had estimated 800,000 for the whole year. So we're doing well there. And again, a lot of that, about 300,000 of that was back payment from last year. But even despite that, we're still doing above projections. So that's very good to say. We finished applying for, if you remember, the GEMT, the Ground Emergency Medical Transportation Program through the federal government. It has cost reporting. After you complete one full year of service, then you're able to apply for that, and it provides some supplemental income for Medicaid transports. And so we did our first cost report. It's obviously a very involved, just like any other cost report, and EMSMC did help with that for no additional charge, and the woman who had helped us was extremely professional and helpful and kind, which always helps. And that concludes my report, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Alderman Peterson?
Chief, if after the postmortem is done on the supposed lithium battery fire, will there be an attempt to try to find out if there's anything instructional that can be distributed to the public as far as what to avoid, if there were certain mistakes that were made, or if there's anything that can be gleaned from the experience of that homeowner?
Yeah, that is a good point, to try as much as possible to educate the public. I mean, generally, the process is, if you follow manufacturers' recommendations and purchase things that are only UL tested, right? If you buy something through like a certain, I won't say any specific names, but a website where it takes like 3-4 weeks to get and it's being shipped from another country, it may not have that certification testing, and that's usually, they're generally safe. So that's the main message. But you're right, we could definitely be good to push that out. It's potentially going to become more and more frequent that we see these with the more and more common use of these larger battery packs.
Like people leaving them on the charger, whether they're fully charged for days at a time or that kind of thing. If there's is there any way to figure out if that's what was going on and if that's going to be a hazard going forward?
To be honest, to that detail, probably not. They'll be able to identify the origin, and a lot of times the insurance company will send out engineers and do testing, because they would like to subjugate that cost to somebody else if they can, from the homeowner's insurance or renter's insurance. But it'd be unlikely to be that detailed. The only other thing I would say about that is that some batteries are made that you leave the charger plugged in, some not. So it's really dependent on what it is, and take a second to read the quick instructions on those to see what's safe and what's not safe.
Thank you,
Alderman
Mayor.
Albertini, excuse me.
It's okay. Skippy. I was out for a walk when that fire broke out. From the time I spotted that fire and saw your trucks go by, the response time was phenomenal. I want to commend you on the response time. I mean, I just was like, wow. Because I had just seen it and there was the siren. So again, I commemorate you guys on doing a wonderful job as always, but just to let the public know you do a good job.
Thank you.
Alderwoman Freeman?
Thank you. So Chief Shadle, as you know, I was one of your 911 transport people, and I just would like to express my gratitude to your department. You were prompt, and the care I got was second to none. So if you could pass that on, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I absolutely will. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Chief Shadle? You know, I do think going forward, we see batteries and everything now to, you know, lawnmowers, snow blowers, you name it, and they seem to be like they're more prevalent now than they ever have been, not just in like, you know, battery-operated tools, but now you're seeing a lot of other things, not to mention vehicles. But I know the chief and I had had some conversations about the concern over batteries and fires and not being able to put those out. I think one of the articles that I had read, an average vehicle fire can be put out with between 500 and 1,000 gallons of water, and a battery vehicle fire is between 35 and 40,000 gallons of water, if I recall. And so I do think it is important as we go forward with, you know, batteries being as more prevalent. They're not easy to put out, and if there's anything we can do to make sure the public is educated, that would certainly be worthwhile, I would think. So thank you, Chief.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you.
Item C, we have the fire department acceptance of donation in your packet. There was a memo dated October 28th of 2024 from Chief Shadle to myself and the council regarding donations from Dairy Queen of Belvedere. Chief?
Yep, the owner of Dairy Queen reached out and asked us if we could participate in their one-year anniversary. He said things are going excellent in Belvedere, and it's a great store, great location, and he's very thankful. He wanted to also help out the community at the same time, and he allowed us to hand out public information material for a few hours, and during those hours, he donated a portion of his profits, which equaled just over $600, and to make it a round figure, he said he was going to donate $650. So the requested motion is to accept the donation of $650 and to utilize those for public education.
All right, if I could have a motion. Motion by Alderman Fleury, second by Alderwoman Graham-Kowski. Thank you both. And any questions regarding the motion on the floor? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
If there's any opposed, motion passed. Thank you, and thank Mr. Patel as well. They have, it was good to see them come to Belvedere, and they have been doing a great job, and it's nice to see them reach out. So thank them on my behalf and the city council as well.
Absolutely, I will. He was attempting to come. He called me a few hours before the meeting and said he just wasn't going to be able to make it, but I will pass on for sure and thank him personally as well.
Next time I go out and get a milkshake, I'll thank him too. All right. Thank you, Chief. Item 3, Finance and Personnel Unfinished Business. We have none. Item 4, Finance and Personnel New Business, Finance Department Update. Finance Director Turnipseed, good evening.
Good evening. I will keep my update brief since we have a couple of presentations tonight for finance. This month I have focused on getting up to speed from where Shannon left off. I have also attended a 2-day CDBG workshop in Springfield held by the DCEO, which is a requirement for the city to act as grant administrators for certain grant agreements. I also had the opportunity to go to the Morton Arboretum in Lisle, Illinois, for a meeting regarding our forestry grant. And if you have not been there, you should go. It's beautiful at this time of year. And I'll entertain any questions.
Okay, thank you. Do anybody have any questions for Ms. Turnipseed? Mrs. Turnipseed, I know that she's been, that's a tough job. I've always said that that's a very, very busy job, and it encompasses so much. And I know she has been very, very busy, and I take my hat off to you because that's one that I probably wouldn't want to have to do. But you have done a great job, but it is new. So if anybody has any questions for her, feel free to ask. Okay? All right. Thank you, Sarah. Appreciate it, all your efforts. And item B, Sikich audit review. In your packet here was a letter from Sikich, and we have here this evening Lindsay Fish is with us here this evening with Sikich. Lindsay, good evening. Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you on behalf of Sikich to the mayor and the city council for inviting me to your meeting this evening to present to you the results of our audit as of and for the fiscal year ended April 30th, 2024. I may not look like a familiar face this year. The engagement partner that oversaw the audit this year, his name is Nick Baba. He has presented in previous years. Him and his wife just welcomed a baby girl into the world last week, so he is on diaper duty tonight while I present to you the results of your audit. As a result of the audit, we did issue several reports. My comments tonight will focus on the annual financial report, which is the largest of the reports that were issued. I will go over a presentation of the various opinions that we issued as a result of the audit. So the first opinion is our independent auditor's report. This is our opinion on your financial statements. It's on Sikich letterhead. It's page number 1, but it's about 10 pages in. Second paragraph down has your audit opinion. In our opinion, the financial statements present fairly in all material respects the respective financial position of the governmental activities, the business type activities, the discretely presented component unit, each major fund, and the aggregate remaining fund information of the city of Belvidere, Illinois, as of April 30th, 2024, and the changes in financial position, cash flows for the year then ended. So what does that mean? That means that we have issued a clean, unmodified opinion on the city's financial statements. That is the highest level of assurance that we can provide. That's the type of opinion that you want to receive. Congratulations to the city on the receipt of another unmodified opinion this year. We issued another opinion as a result of the audit as well, which is about 4 pages further in, also on Sikich letterhead. This is titled The Independent Auditor's Report on Internal Control over Financial Reporting and on Compliance and Other Matters Based Upon an Audit of Financial Statements Performed in Accordance with Government Auditing Standards. So the city also had an audit performed in accordance with government audit standards. What this means is that we had to perform some additional compliance testing with laws and regulations. And the reason that you had to have the second opinion was due to the amount of state and federal grant funding that was spent. So when you spend greater than $750,000 in federal awards, you're required to also undergo a single audit where we do some additional compliance testing as well. So on that opinion, if you flip to the second page, first paragraph there, we note that during our audit, we did not identify any deficiencies in internal control that we consider to be material weaknesses. So that is good. And then the second opinion, or the second paragraph there, our report on compliance and other matters, the last sentence there just discloses that the results of our tests disclosed no instances of non-compliance or other matters that are required to be reported under government auditing standards. So another clean opinion that you've received there as well. So again, we performed that single audit, which again was required because you spent more than $750,000 in federal awards. The city spent about $1.5 million this year. Of that, we tested about $500,000, which was the amount that you spent of your ARPA funds this year. And again, no findings or question costs as a result of that single audit. Overall and in conclusion, the audit went on time and as scheduled. The city staff is always helpful, forthcoming, and professional to work with as well. They got us what we needed to complete the audit, so just want to make sure that the city council recognizes the finance staff for all their hard work that goes into the audit as well. And I would be happy to answer any questions.
Alrighty, Andy, any questions for Ms. Fish regarding the audit? Alderman Peterson.
How many previous audits has Sikich done for the city?
I don't know off the top of my head. My guess would be that we have worked with the city for maybe 8 or 9 years would be my guess.
I think this is the third year.
Third.
Isn't
I think this is our third year with Sikich, correct?
Yes, the contract is ending. However, I believe we
In the
were
past.
with them previous to that
Yes.
too, so it
Yes.
might have been at least 6
Yes.
years.
Yeah, so generally it's on like a 3-year contract, so it might have been maybe the second or third 3-year contract.
Yep. Any other questions? Any other comments? All right, well, it's nice to have you here, especially with great news. Thank you very much.
Yes,
and
thank you.
Thank you for your help.
Mayor, at this time, could I request a motion to accept and approve the audit as presented by Sickage for the fiscal year ending April 30th, 2024?
Okay. Motion by Alderman Peterson, second by Alderman Stevens. Thank you both. Any questions regarding the motion on the floor? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
If there's any opposed? All right, motion passed. Thank you very much. Thank you again, Lindsay. All right, moving on, we have with us this evening Kevin Kavanaugh for our actuarial valuation with Lauterbach and Amann. Good evening, Kevin.
Thank you.
I think that microphone's still on. It is.
Perfect. And I've got paper copies of my actuarial valuation presentation that I'm about to go through. I believe it's already in your packet, but does anybody want a paper copy? Here, we'll send some down this way. Anybody over here, you good? Got paper? All right, perfect. All right, so without further ado, I'll give you guys a high-level summary of the results of this year's actuarial valuation for the police and fire pension funds. We do complete 4 actuarial reports on an annual basis, 1 each for fire and police, 2 each for fire and police. 1 is for funding purposes, and the other one's for the GASB 6768 reporting that ends up in the audit that Sickich just presented to you guys this evening. So that being said, if you turn to page 2 in the presentation I passed around, page numbers in the bottom left, you'll see the bottom line results for this year is that the recommended contribution for the fire pension fund from the city is $1,507,234. That's a year-over-year increase of about a 6.5%. And for the police pension fund, the recommended contribution being $2,074,623. Year-over-year, that's about a 9% increase in that recommended contribution amount. I'll show you on the next page why the increase this year. But you can see the total unfunded liability for both pension funds. That's basically how much between your current funded status and what you would need to achieve 100% funded as of April 30, 2024. And for the fire pension fund, it's about $13.3 million of unfunded liability, and for police, about $18.5 million. And you can that translates to your funded percent this year for fire, about 61.76% funded, and police about 62.75%. Turning to that next slide there on page 3, that's going to detail out all the different factors that ultimately led to the increases in the contributions for both fire and police this year. I won't hit on every topic here. You can kind of see the different items. The one item I'll just kind of elaborate on a little bit, expected change is what we would expect on an annual basis. That's kind of the way that actuarial valuation is designed. We expect to see the $46,000 and the $61,000 increase in that neighborhood for fire and police each year. Some of the other items here was that we saw asset returns were less than expected. That is based on a 5-year smoothed average of returns, which comes in a little bit below the expected rate of return of 6.75 for both of the funds. So that led to an increase. And then finally, this last one, contributions compared to expected. This year, the city did put in 100% of the recommended contribution this year. So that's just purely timing of when those dollars hit the funds. Turning to that next slide there on page 4 is going to show you the 2 components that make up the recommended contribution. The first piece there is employer normal cost, and really what that represents when we say normal cost is it's the annual cost of benefit accrual for any active members. So as these active firefighters and police officers accrue an additional year of service, they're further entitled to pension benefits. You're effectively setting those dollars aside today so that through the accumulated investment earnings, those dollars can eventually be used to pay benefit payments. That's actually a relatively small portion of the contribution. It's about a quarter of it for both fire and police. The other piece there is paying off that unfunded liability. So basically, if the funds were 100% funded today, the total recommended contribution for both funds would just be that first line item, the normal cost of $396,552. But because there's that unfunded liability that exists, there's those payments of the $1.1 and the $1.5 million for fire and police respectively that get us to the full recommended contribution amounts for this year. Page 5 is going to detail out all the demographic changes for the fire pension fund. Usually for city council meetings, I don't like to get too much in the weeds on detail like that, so you can kind of read that at your leisure. Same thing for police on page 6. Page 7 is going to show you for everyone who's active within the fire department, their age and service. And then we provide a tier 1 as well as a tier 2 headcount. Tier 1 representing any employees hired before January 1, 2011. Tier 2 is anyone after that. And same chart is on page 8 for the police pension fund. You might notice there's like this bordered off section towards the bottom right. That represents retirement eligibility. So anyone who falls within that box, their head count, that's a retirement eligible individual as of April 30, 24. So for police, for example, we've got 4 retirement eligible folks. Page 9 will show you some more demographic info for fire and police, as well as projection of benefit payment expectations. So last year, you can see if we just look in total across fire and police, both funds, total benefits paid out from those funds was just under $4 million for the fiscal year ended April 30, 2024. 10 years from now, we expect those funds to be paying out about $6.3, almost $6.4 million on an annual basis. So definitely expecting some increases to benefit payments coming down the line here. Page 10 will show you how the assets changed for both fire and police during the fiscal year. On this page, I would say, what's mostly of note, or at least from my perspective, is that return on investments. It was definitely a good investment year for both funds. You can see those investment returns detailed to the right. The return for fire was 10.26%. That's net of all administrative expenses. And the return for police was 9.11. So too bad we didn't get to 911. And then the expected rate of return is 6.75%, so you can see that. Turning to page 11 there, that's our risk management comments. So this is some factors that we look at for the funds to assess overall health and some of the risk factors that might be affecting the funds. So the first bullet point is we're comparing assets against inactive liability. So in a perfect world here, the funds would already have the assets today to cover any inactive liability. That would be like benefit payments promised to people who have already separated service with the funds. So there is a shortfall there. And what that means is that it becomes the funding priority. So as money flows into these pension funds, it's really, it's all flowing into one pool. It's not necessarily earmarked for each individual. But really what's happening in the background in theory is that the money that's coming in now is really allocated towards funding that inactive liability, and then future benefits can be allocated towards the current benefits that are accruing for active members. Another metric we look at here is this ratio of benefit payments to the fair value of assets. This just tells us, if we look at the total pension fund and all its assets that it has, how much of that money is used to pay benefit payments in a given year. So for fire, it's 8.72. For police, it's 7.02%. So a little bit of a better number on the police side. This just kind of tells us how healthy is the fund. What we're looking for here in a perfect world is the fund paying out less in benefits than it's expected to earn on its investments. So you can see police is really close. Their expected rate of return is 6.75%, but the fund's paying out 7.02. So they're paying out a little bit more than that expectation of investment returns. And again, that just means that some of the money coming in, city contributions, as well as some member contributions, will be allocated towards paying those benefit payments in the short term. I'll skip over those sensitivities at the bottom in the interest of time. And page 12 is the alternative contribution. So this is following Illinois state statute for minimum funding policy parameters. What contribution amount would that generate on the city's behalf if you were funding it based on the statutory minimum requirements? And so those minimum requirements are to be at least 90% funded by the year 2040, and that's on a projected unit credit basis. Everything I've talked to up until this point is on a recommended basis. That's targeting 100% funding instead of 90 over a similar time period, but it's about 16 and a half years using a different methodology. So ultimately, page 12, you'll see those numbers. The alternative contribution for fire is about 1.2 million, and for police about $1.76 million. Page 13 is a 5-year history of how much the city's contributed specifically for the fire pension fund. And you can see every single year, the contribution is, the employer contribution is how much the city's put into the fund. The actuarially determined contribution is how much was recommended to be contributed from the Lauterbach and Neiman Actuarial Valuation Report. And you can see over the last 5 years, on average, every single year, the city has done their part to fund the full recommended contribution to the dollar. So really strong funding history there. Same exact story to be said for the police pension fund. Really strong support of the city in funding these pension funds. And really in the long run, that saves taxpayers a lot of money, getting the money in the funds today so it can accrue with investment earnings over time. And then just wrapping up on pages 15 and 16, these are called the solvency tests for fire and police. And basically it's a long-term projection of cash flows to the fund. The end result here being that both funds are projected to be fully solvent or able to pay all future benefit payments for the current membership. So that's the result you're looking for on that. And that's also reflected in the city's audit. That being said, that's pretty much all I have for you guys this evening. Happy to answer any questions if anyone has any.
All right, is there any questions for Mr. Kavanaugh? Alderman Peterson?
Just a comment, I just think it's rich that the state expects municipal police and fire funds to be fully vested or fully paid into by 2040, when I'm not aware of a single state pension fund that's going to be fully funded anytime between now and eternity.
That is a great point. As I recall, the state is $300 billion, I believe, behind on their pension obligations, so.
But I think, the city attorney Drell might be able to correct me, but I seem to recall that how Rockford lost its home rule status was they started playing games with what they would fund into their police and fire pension funds, and then I think they got sued, if I remember right. So by the time they had to make amends and fully fund them, they raised taxes on citizens to the point they backdoor petitioned to lose home rule status so they wouldn't do that.
They still don't have home rule status, I don't believe, so that's a good point. Any other questions? Any other comments? All right, thank you, Mr. Kavanaugh, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for the good news, yeah.
Appreciate it.
All right, item D, we have the 2024 IML Risk Management Association Annual Review. Let's see. I have that letter somewhere, don't I? All right, and that is from Mr. Cole, Brad Cole, dated October 1st, 2024, regarding risk management and what we have, and I think Ms. Turnipseed has some figures regarding that.
Yes, in your packets was an invoice from IML for the 2025 annual renewal for workers' comp, comprehensive general, liability insurance, portable equipment, auto, physical damage, and property insurance. This year's renewal is an increase of $29,000 or 4% from last year. At this time, I would request a motion to approve the 2025 IML Risk Management Association annual renewal in the amount of $757,910.54.
Okay, if we could have a motion to that effect, please. Motion by Alderman Peterson, second by Alderman Stevens. And just so we have an understanding about what the increase is, it's, according to Ms. Turnipseed, it's 4% this year and roughly $30,000 increase. The city has had a number of claims throughout the city. We've had wastewater treatment plant issues, but we had the tornado, and we had, I believe, a fire. So we have had claims, but it is the price of doing business. I was actually kind of surprised that it hadn't gone up any more than that. But if there's any questions, we'll try and answer them. All right, hearing none. All those in favor of the motion on the floor, then to approve the IML 2025 IML Risk Management Association annual renewal in the amount of $757,910.54. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And if there's any opposed. Motion passed. Thank you.
Mayor, I'm not sure anybody made a motion on that.
We have a first and a second.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, we do. Pay attention. All right,
I'll make a motion.
item E, in your packet is the health renewal calendar year for 2025. Ms. Turnipseed had placed in your packet some information, but I think she had some information that she will talk about. Ms. Turnipseed?
Yep. Last year, the city approved a medical plan with United Healthcare, which came with a rate cap lock for this year of 11.9%, in which the city saw savings approximately $324,000 in health insurance premiums last year, or for 2024. This year, our broker at Cottingham and Butler was able to negotiate the rate cap increase down to 5%. At this time, I would request a motion to approve the renewal with United Healthcare for medical and self-funding of dental for calendar year 2025.
Okay. If I could get a motion to that effect, please. Motion by Alderwoman Gramkowski, second by Alderman Peterson. As you recall, I will just comment on what Ms. Turnipseed said. As you recall, we did have Blue Cross Blue Shield. That plan was discontinued, and we had to come up with something that was comparable, competitive. And we did switch to United. It did save the city a significant amount of money. The alternative, even though the plan wasn't offered any longer, would have been, I think, about $700,000 increase for the city. But this plan was comparable, and we had a 2-year commitment with 11.9% potential increase, I think. Was that it? 11.9 rate cap, but they did, Cottingham and Butler did negotiate that down to 5%, which I was very happy about. So it's not, you know, it's, it could have been a lot worse, but that's where we're at. So to fill in the blanks. If anybody has any questions, go ahead and ask. Try and answer them. Okay, hearing none, we have a motion on the floor. Then to request, to approve the renewal with United Healthcare for medical and self-funding dental for calendar year 2025. Hearing no other questions or comments, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And if there's any opposed?
No.
Okay. Motion passed, thank you. And we have item F regarding tax levy announcement. Mrs. Turnipseed?
Yes, there is a memo in your packet. As you know, a tax levy must be passed by the last Tuesday in December. The attached announcement of estimated tax levy is the first step in that process. The two figures contained in the first paragraph are: 1, the city's estimate, which represents a 4.8% increase from the current levy. This amount will cover the increase in the tax levy request from the fire and police pension funds. And 2, that of the Ida Public Library, which represents a 5% increase from their current levy. Again, this is just the first step in the process. Council will have the opportunity to discuss various scenarios and determine amounts beginning at the November 12, 2024 committee meeting before approving the final levy. At this time, I would recommend a motion to approve the estimated tax levy of $6,716,682 as presented by the Finance Director.
Okay, that is a starting point. If I could have a motion for that, and then it will be back to you as we move forward. If I could have a motion. Motion by Alderman Peterson, thank you. Second by Alderman Stevens, thank you both. Any questions, any comments regarding the proposed, at least the starting point for the levy conversation? We will get, this isn't, we had to start somewhere. This is where this discussion will start. Where it will finish will be up to the council. So,
Mayor, the reason for this, for some of the aldermen that are newer to the council, the state of Illinois has something called the Truth in Taxation Act. The Truth in Taxation Act requires the corporate authorities, so this will come back to council next week, to make an estimate of the projected tax levy. This is not the tax levy. They'll come back to you again. You can discuss the tax levy. It can be more than or it can be less than this. But it's just a hoop that the state makes us jump through so everybody knows we're starting to talk about the tax levy and kind of a starting point. But this does not lock you in one iota, and it can change over the next few meetings.
okay. Any questions regarding that as we move forward from here? All right, hearing none, we have a motion on the floor then to approve the estimated tax levy of $6,716,682 as presented by the Finance Director. Mrs. Turnipseed, if there are no other questions, hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And if there's any opposed? Okay. Motion passed, thank you. Moving on, item 5, other new business. Item A, building code amendments. In your packet was a memo dated October 22nd, 2024 regarding the building code amendments from City Attorney Drella. Those amendments, as you can see, are listed. If there's any questions regarding the adoption of that or any questions regarding what is listed in the information, we can ask, but to start with, I would ask for a motion to adopt the reference 2021-2024 ISC codes and amending sections 22-31, 22-32, 22-33, 22-34, 22-67, 22-500, 22-501, and 22-502 as set forth in the attached ordinance. If I could get that motion for discussion at least. Motion by Alderman Stevens, second by Alderman Peterson. Thank you both. And any questions, Mr. Countryman I know is here and he would be able to help us out. Kip, do you have any comments regarding the amendments that you had felt?
And actually, I'll start that one off. Every few years, the city readopts the international codes. It is an organization, nonprofit, that develops building codes, energy codes, electrical codes, fire codes, that most municipalities across the nation actually adopt one of those because they are sustainable, they are defensible in court because they are developed by experts through this nonprofit. So the city of Belvedere, since I've been here, has always adopted a version of the international codes. They come out with a new version every 2 or 3 years, and we don't adopt them every 2 or 3 years. Last time we did adopt them was 2016. We adopted, actually a little bit later than that, we adopted the 2016 codes. So we usually wait a while so you don't adopt the new model year and get surprised by something in the code. So it is time to adopt the new codes. The last time around, Belvedere, along with Rockford, Chesney Park, Lowe's Park, a bunch of the other municipalities did something kind of novel for the area. Whenever you adopt one of these international codes, there's always going to be some things in them that the municipality feels doesn't apply to their region or their municipality. So all those municipalities got together and adopted something called the regional code. And it was the same exact amendments for every municipality that participated, so that we'd be on equal footing, so to speak, and contractors and developers, when they came into the area, would have one set of codes they could look at and knew what they're dealing with. The municipalities did not do that this time. There was no regional code to go with, which is why I see a lot more amendments this time around within our code. Because last time we simply adopted the regional code by reference like we are these, and we couldn't do that this time. So there's a lot more amendments that you're seeing, and really a lot of the amendments that are here are what were in the regional code before. But because we couldn't adopt it by reference, I had to copy and paste them into our code. So there's nothing of a huge change in these codes. One of the huge changes, Chief Shale can get into, if you have questions of him, that pertain to, in addition to adopting the 2021 International Fire Code, we're recommending adopting a portion of the 2024 International Fire Code, because that new code addresses lithium-ion battery storage. And not for residential necessarily, but more for corporate warehousing and or manufacturing of batteries, which in light of the Chrysler announcement that came down a year or two ago, we thought would be important. But if there are specific questions beyond the general, I can answer the general questions. If you have specific questions of diameter of pipe or type of wire or something like that, I would defer those to Kip or the fire chief.
Okay. If anybody's had a chance to review them, if you have any specific questions, we'll try and answer them. Alderman Albertini.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a couple of questions. One, this is very lengthy. I've had it for a short time, and I haven't had a chance to review the entire contents of this. I'd like to know if we can delay this vote until I have a further time to review this, or maybe some of our other councilmen need time to review this, but this is quite extensive, and I don't think I have enough information to make a vote on this.
Well,
You can certainly make a motion to postpone if you chose to. However, I would recommend against that. You do have this entire week, first reading being next week. You have the intervening committee meeting, which you could bring it back under the agenda, discuss it then, and you would not be essentially having a final vote on the second reading for 3 weeks. One of the reasons why I recommend against it, and it's not to say you couldn't do it, but once we adopt the ordinance, you'll notice that in the ordinance, I have an unusual effective date. I didn't make it effective until I believe it was January 1, might have been January 30th. I have to check the ordinance. The city is required to give notice to the Capital Development Board at least 30 days before its effective date. So you're pushing back that effective date. I have no idea when somebody's gonna come in with a battery plant or something like that, or try and pull building permits on any of these things. But I certainly want to have this in effect before any large-scale development begins. But it's completely up to the council how they want to proceed.
Okay, so we still have time before we actually finalize this, so I would have time to review this for the final vote.
It's like any other ordinance. It comes to committee, then it has a 1 week first reading, and then a 2 week layover and a second reading. So at least 3 weeks.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. That's what I was trying to get to. Okay, thank you very much, and I can take back my motion to postpone the vote.
Okay. All right. Alderman Peterson.
Chief Shadle, is some of the peer review and the process involved with the lithium-ion battery systems and storage and whatnot, is that something that's been developed in other jurisdictions? Like, I think there's a big Goshen plant that went in, and is it Bloomington or Normal? Is this a result of what some of the other jurisdictions have been working up?
The code is not brand new. The language isn't. We were able to find it from a different application, but essentially we knew that there could be potential hazards coming into the community that would be extremely complicated and complex and unique. And at that point, we would require a way to make sure that they are designing the facility safely and that. So this idea actually came during the construction of the Walmart facility, that large facility. We got to speak with system designers and the fire protection engineers and on a conference call, and we went over a lot of these amendments. And after talking with the mayor and Attorney Drell as well about how do we solve that issue, this came up. That code was mentioned to us in that conference call, and they said it's not in the fire code specifically, but if you look, this is an example where a peer review is used for a type of very complex hazard. So it only triggers a peer review. It lists specifically when it would. A lot of it's related to the manufacture and storage of lithium-ion batteries, and then something that is deemed as a significant community hazard could trigger that, leaving room for, maybe there's a new fuel using XYZ or hydrogen ions or something that can cause fires or explosions that we haven't even seen yet. So it's 2024, we're in IFC 2015, right? 9 years from now, it's very plausible that there's something that we didn't even catch that would be nice to have some engineers to do that. So that's how that peer review came to be, and that's how it got in our code amendment.
And yes, other jurisdictions do that, and yes, we did plagiarize to some extent.
Thanks.
Good. Alderwoman Freeman?
So is everything in here a change? Everything in this whole thing is a change from what it was?
No. And what I mean by that is when we adopt the model codes, the majority of the model codes aren't actually changing from the 16 code. It's carryover to the new code with some subtle changes. And the amendments to the codes that are contained primarily in section 22-34. Many of those amendments were actually in the old regional code and carried over to the new code as well. But yes, the 21 code is a new code, and that's not the 16 code anymore, even though much of it's the same. And there are some new amendments. I'm not exactly sure exactly which one are carryovers or which one are new, because I got all that information from Kip and also from the fire department.
Okay, and then I wanted to ask about Exhibit B. The international building codes are hereby excluded from adoption, so we are excluding portions of the IRC codes?
Correct, so because, for example, the state of Illinois has a state of Illinois plumbing code that we must follow. So we follow that one, so we exclude this one. Signs, we have our own sign code, so we follow that. That's both in our zoning code, and in our base code. And electrical, I can't remember, Kip, is that state also? Oh, no, so we adopted the NEC.
Yeah, be the National Electrical Code.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Just to summarize, the last time the city, as Mike stated, it was the regional building code, which involved Winnebago County, City of Rockford, Loves Park, McChesney Park. All communities put amendments in that we all felt comfortable with so that everybody was on the same page. This time around, that committee has been established, but through communities, my contacts with communities, fire departments, building departments, we're all under the same understanding of these amendments. Over time, since the original code, Rockford has put in amendments. The other communities haven't accepted those amendments or adopted those new amendments. So it's still it's not the regional building code, but everybody's kind of under the same understanding that these are the amendments we want in here. The fire department did their due diligence as far as if there's any projects that may come to the community with the battery developments and things like that. So another thing we need to touch on is your ISO rating, which reflects on your homeowner's insurance. If we don't continuously move up to the codes, the state has done it with the energy code that was implemented at the beginning of the year. We don't want people's homeowners insurance rates to go up because we're not following the codes that are internationally brought forth to accept or adopt without the amendments. So that's another reason I have been contacted by ISO. I've told her to hold up, can you hold off until the beginning of the year? We'll get the codes hopefully push forward. That'll help with the homeowners' premiums for the properties in the city. So this is the third or fourth time I've gone through code cycles since I've been doing this. It's just staying up to speed with what's going on in the country, with the building practices that are going on, and adding a few amendments to kind of back off on some of the lack of a better term, the bureaucratic stuff going on federally, and the companies that are pushing through some of the stuff that doesn't really affect this community, and that's kind of why we go through it. So that's kind of where we're at.
Okay, thank you, Kip. Chief, I see you had your hand up. Did you want to correct anything?
No correction. I just wanted to describe why we did our amendments, and there's basically 4 quick reasons. And so we compared the code to the regional code and looked at those amendments, and then we looked at what Rockford District 2 and some area departments were. So nothing in there is new, but what we did is we only did an amendment if one of the 4 things happened. One is if we could increase efficiency or safety at no negligible cost. And so like there's some where like the letters are bigger so we can see them better. That is an example of that. Another example is if there's discretion within the code, it's nice to have something in writing. For example, we talk about what requires lock boxes. In the code, it says it's the fire code official's discretion. Well, if I can get that in writing and say lock boxes are going to be any building that has fire alarms or sprinklers is going to have a lock box, right? Then it's crystal clear. And then I've had a property owner say, "Why do I need a lock box?" It says it's your discretion. You know why? And then when we've thought about that and we can put it in writing, that's why we do that amendment. Another amendments that were hazard specific to our community, and that was why we went with some of the 2024 codes. The textbooks on this stuff is not written yet. Like we're figuring it out in real time as it happens. And a lot of the most important safety features in manufacturing of batteries is the actual design of the plant, because you cannot suppress batteries. There's nothing that will put out a battery that's having thermal runaway. They claim there's some special chemicals that will slow it down, but that's why it uses so much water, because the runaway, you cannot stop. Water doesn't absorb enough heat to stop that. So you can either take whatever's burning and put it outside or move everything away from it. So that's design considerations. Even a battery-operated car that's been in a wreck has to be away from combustibles by certain numbers of feet because they can just light back up. It's just how nature of that. So that was an example. And then the only other time that we included that was, it makes sense, like we have a burning ordinance, right? So our burning ordinance is slightly different than the outdoor burning in the code. So that's the amendment. So each one of those has a intention, and they are slightly different. To find out exactly what that was changed, you would have to look at the code as it was written and then look at ours and see what that is. But that's where the fire department made decisions and created those amendments.
Okay. Thank you, Kip, and thank you, Chief. Alderman Stevens?
Is there anything in the code that we're considering possibly for residential sprinklers?
I can answer questions on that. It's actually, believe it or not in the fire code. It's in the regional building code. So I will let Kip answer that directly, and then I can answer code specifically or any considerations about that you'd like to know.
The easy answer is we're not requiring them residential, but they are permitted if they choose to do so.
Mm-hmm.
And that's single family, greater than 3 or 4 family cap.
Anything larger than a 2-family, which would be a duplex or townhome, is required to have sprinklers if they cannot design the building to meet the fire separation. I'm thankful the townhome on Chrysler Drive was isolated to one single unit. I actually was the superintendent at the time when those were being built, in charge of building those units through the city of Belvedere, and I'm thankful that the design that we presented to the city at the time, it did its job. The building did its job. I'm not a proponent or against residential sprinklers. I really don't, I'm not the one that's in charge of fighting the fires. What I am is in charge of at this time is reviewing the plans and making sure that they meet the fire separations for the units. So at this time, regionally, because of the cost, because of the whatever, we have put in there the amendment that the residential sprinkler requirement is not in there for single-family homes, two-family homes. And if they don't design the townhomes and the larger multifamily buildings, they are required to be sprinklered unless they design them properly, fire separate them.
Okay, because I'm definitely a big sprinkler fan, so that one of these days we can get in our homes much safer.
And I don't disagree with that. It's another safety thing. It gives the people time to get out of the building, whether they're disabled or not. It's not going to put the fire out. The building design of the glue and the stuff that they put in the buildings at this time, the residential sprinkler requirement doesn't require it in the basement, doesn't require it in the attics, and that's where the laminated lumber comes in. The nominal lumber, you don't see it much anymore. So they, you know, I've heard horror stories. You got 3 to 5 minutes, and that building is going to be fully engulfed. The roof's going to collapse, and everybody's got to be out of there in that time. Now, I get the distance to get to those places because Belvedere is such a large community now. It'd be a great idea to do that, but it's just an initial gush of water to maybe put out that area that the fire has started in. But if the building's fully engulfed, all we're thinking about is just getting the people out of there and everything else. But it's not gonna, the idea of the residential sprinkler is not gonna put the building out from being continuously burning, so.
Okay. Thank you. Alderwoman Freeman?
So Chief Shadle, the batteries, these lithium-ion batteries, whether they be in the manufacturing plant or in somebody's garage or like the fire you just fought in that condo, do they have the potential to just spontaneously combust, or what would be the spark that would set that off?
I believe it's just a chemical reaction, and yes, sometimes due to charging, it's usually some a charging issue or physical damage is what mostly causes. Absolutely, you can go to YouTube and search smashing lithium-ion batteries, and you'd probably be surprised what they do. So, but as far as the codes and that, it's only really commercial, and there is some multifamily with the lithium-ion considerations for, like, you can't store a bunch of e-bikes in the basement of your multifamily, even though that's a residential. The fire codes usually don't apply to individual homesteads, but when they become multifamilies, and then for sure commercial. But yeah, it's normally it's damage and then charging are the two things that can cause that to run away.
Okay. I know, Chief, was there any consumer alerts regarding, I know they'd had several fires in garages where they were charging their vehicles, EV, electric vehicles in the garages, and I think some of the communities had recommended they not put them inside and charge them outside. And I don't know if that warning has changed or if they've come up with any solution. That's one thing, and then the other thing is when you have an accident, for instance, and the vehicle catches fire, do you think that that's from impact? Is that normally, can that be attributed to impact during the accident, or?
Absolutely. I mean, they're designed to be as safe as possible under and even in crash conditions. And there's I don't even know the number, so I'm not going to say, but a lot of electric vehicles out, and there's a lot of them that crash and that have no issues. And the ones we see are the ones that do. But yeah, it is the physical damage. It is the mixing and the physical damage that causes that thermal runaway. And as far as safety advisories, it's been a little bit since I really dug into that topic personally, but I think I got the hint of course to you even utilize some of the money for public education to get that out, get those information out, and revisit that, and have our public education coordinator, Lieutenant Thornton, really do a push. In the last 2 months, we've had 2 battery fires, so and maybe I'm getting ahead of myself saying that was the cause, but that it does happen, and there is quite a lot of questions about it and misconceptions. So we'll do our best to clear those up and look at those safety alerts.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Kip. Appreciate the information on that. I thought Kip had made a good point too about lumber. I know regarding how he compared it with, for instance, sprinkling. And he's right. I know that it used to be you had your 2x10s, 2x12s, whatever your nominal lumber, and then they went to the TGIs where you have the plywood. They're stronger, but they're certainly not as fire resistant. And a lot of times when you have a fire on the first floor in those buildings, that's a terrible hazard for firefighters to be able to go in there because they don't support themselves. They burn very quickly. Correct me if I'm wrong, Chief, but I know that is a difference. And technically, I guess you could have said, yeah, you would have liked to have made the code so that you had to build the lumber out of nominal lumber, 2x4s, like most of your older construction was. And now the current methods, while they're stronger, they're definitely not more fire resistant. As a matter of fact, they're more dangerous with heat and with fire. So if you get in there, you have no floor support, essentially, if the fire's underneath you. So, or very, very, very less time, put it that way, to act. So, go ahead.
Yeah, everything you said is 100% accurate. Lightweight construction, we give it 5 minutes if the lumber is exposed more than 5 minutes. Basically, it would allow us to do a search. Now, we're fortunate because such a high percentage of our community is within 4 minutes of our stations. But as these new construction, we have new construction all the way on Shaw. And I can tell you that something burning for 12 extra minutes, it's going to be very, very different. And oftentimes, if it hasn't already, collapse will usually happen. The fire in Poplar Grove, it was maybe like 8 minutes after my arrival, so maybe like 16 minutes in, the roof started collapsing. So if you get there fast enough, you can do a quick search, make sure everybody's out while you're suppressing. But it does happen pretty fast. As far as residential sprinklers, it is a community topic, and it really is for you guys to really understand what people want and what you think is better. I looked up the cost, the cost to do these. Inspector Revels looked up all this information for us. She called 3 contractors, and for a 2,500 square foot house, it cost approximately $15,000. All 3 were the same, $15,000 for 2,500 square feet. So you're adding that cost to new construction. On an annual basis, you would have to have it inspected by a plumber. I called a local plumber in the area in Rockford. They're kind of a bigger outfit. They do plumbing and HVAC. They charge $140. So that would be the ongoing cost. You'd have them out and $140, and they would inspect that. I asked myself, I said, well, would I pay to sprinkler my house as it is right now? And I haven't yet. Like, it's very expensive to retrofit, but I thought, well, now if I was building a house, would that be something that government should make it so in their own best interest? And I mean, that question, that's a tricky one. That's definitely up for you guys to decide that.
Thank you, Chief. Alderman Peterson?
I was going to comment on Alderman Stevens' comment on sprinklering, in that it makes a lot more sense to have it in an outlying subdivision like on Distillery Road or Shaw Road. I mean, I don't think you can probably make logic out of one size fits all. It makes a lot less sense to have to require one at Dawn Gate or somewhere right down the road from the 6th Street station, as opposed to having it in an outlying area where you know you're not going to have a pumper there in 10 minutes.
That was definitely a thought. If you're further away, if there's a way, I mean, there's always a way. The attorneys can figure out a way to say anything you want in these ordinances. So I take the wording back. It's not 100% true, but that could be done. That could be done. But most of the areas by the fire stations are completely 100% built, and the new construction is not going to be in those areas. So that is something to consider as well.
Alderman Peterson?
And I think it's also a carrot and a stick kind of thing too. I mean, I think rather than saying that thou shalt add this 15,000 on, I think, you can be an advocate for it and let the market, as in most cases, the market's best able to decide whether it can bear it or not.
I was reading some literature on it, and the Realtors Association puts out material against residential home sprinklers, and I just lost my train of thought. They spoke on that specifically. Can you say that again? What you were?
Do they seem like they're for it, or do they want that to be decided on a case-by-case basis? Is that the gist of it?
Yes, thank you. So they believe that it subdues new construction. Or it adds cost and cuts down the number of units is their overall stance on that. But one thing that I did see is communities can require it an mandatory offering upon the builder, if they're building new construction, that they have to, it's mandatory that they ask that question and then sign off if they do not want residential sprinklers. However, what often happens in practice is that happens during closing and everything's already figured out, and it's later in the game sometimes, so it's not as effective as you would hope. But that's one way around it, where we just require as part of the permit process that you offer that as a new home builder. So that is how I saw some communities tackle that.
There's been a few that have done that. You got the problem, one, that comes late in the game sometimes. The other one is a lot of people don't own their houses for more than 7 or 10 years. So yeah, it covers the first owner, but not all the subsequent owners. So there's that issue as well.
Okay, well, that is definitely, as the chief had said, that's a decision that would be made by the governing body locally as we go forward, but it's not here now for all the discussions, reasons that we've had. So if there's no other discussion, we have a motion on the floor then to adopt the reference 2021 and 2024 IAC codes with the amended sections as mentioned. If there's no other discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And if there's any opposed, motion passed. And Chief, I want to thank you for putting that disclaimer out on the city attorney about the 100%. It's not 100%. It might be 99 maybe, but not 100%. So thank you.
I feel like a hired gun.
No, I thought that was helpful. Thank you, Chief. All right. Item 5B, well number 11, Geotechnical Engineering Services. Director Anderson, good evening.
Thank you, Your Honor. Memo in your packet. We're at the point now of doing the design work for the facility for our new well 11 that we need to have some geotechnical services done. We received proposals from Testing Service Corporation and Terracon to complete that work. That'll include soil borings and groundwater conditions. I would recommend approval of the proposal from Testing Service Corporation in an amount not to exceed $19,750 to complete the geotechnical services for the well 11 facility. This work will be paid for from the IEPA Public Water Supply Loan Program.
All right, if I could have a motion to that effect, please. Motion by Alderman Albertini, second by Alderman McGee. Thank you both. Any questions regarding the motion on the floor? Or questions for, direct questions for Mr. Anderson? Hearing none. Alderwoman Freeman.
So we're testing the soil and the groundwater conditions to build this well. What if they come back that it's not feasible to do it there?
I'm not expecting that at all. This just helps out in the design of it because the facility here, as you may recall, includes not only the new well, but we also need to replace the storage reservoir that was located at the water department, the old Well 3 reservoir. So this new well will have the house of the well facility itself, and then it'll have about a 500,000 gallon ground storage reservoir attached to it, made as part of the building. So that's why we need to do that exploratory, just to make sure we get the foundations and everything built to handle those loads.
Thank you.
All right, is there any other questions regarding the motion on the floor? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And if there's any opposed? Motion passed, thank you. And last but not least, item 5C, Manhole Adjustments Project, the bid tabulation in your packet from Director Anderson dated 10/23 of '24 is a memo regarding that project. Director Anderson.
Thank you again, Your Honor. In our current capital budget, we've included $300,000 for manhole adjustments, and these are to take care of all the, I say trip hazards, for the plow trip hazards, for snow plows, snow removal. Some of the manholes we've already been able to take care of through our overlay program this year. But again, we have set aside in the current capital budget $300,000. So we opened the bids up, and that's for about 120 manholes that we've identified. Schroeder Asphalt Services was a low bid at $450,780. As I said, the budget was $300,000, and that included engineering inspection. So we issued an addendum to the contract proposals and set the ceiling not to exceed $240,000. Therefore, I would recommend approval of the low bid from Schroeder Asphalt Services in an amount not to exceed $240,000 for the manhole adjustment project per the bid addendum. This work will be paid for from capital funds. The work expected to be done yet this fall, as long as weather permits, with the balance of the work to be done in the spring. Anticipating about 60 manholes are going to be done at this time, and the balance of the manholes will be either addressed through our overlay program next year or additional funds we will put in the budget, capital budget again for next year to complete our manhole list.
Okay. Thank you, sir. With that being said, could I have a motion to that effect, please? Motion by Alderman Peterson, thank you, and a second by Alderman McGee. Thank you both. Any other questions or comments on the motion on the floor? Alderwoman Freeman.
So Schroeder agreed to reduce their bid by $210,000?
So all of the bidders knew that we had a ceiling cap at $240,000, and they knew that going in, yes. And it was referenced in that addendum that it would be done through just the reduction on the number of manholes to be done.
Okay, any other questions? All right, hearing none. Alderman Fleury.
Right, so they necessarily didn't adjust their bid, they just adjusted the amount. You said there's 150 that need to be done, now we're just dropping it down to 60.
Yeah, we had originally anticipated 120, and now we're doing about 60.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, thank you. Any other questions for Director Anderson? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor of the motion on the floor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? Motion passed, thank you, and that concludes our business this evening. If I could have a motion to adjourn, please. Motion by Alderman Albertini, second by Alderman Peterson. Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody want to stay? For the record, we adjourned at 7:31 PM.